All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, David. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the Susan Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that David Minasian accepted our invitation to our show. David, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Claudia. Nice to meet you.
Same here, man. We've been living from the last 2 years with COVID. Some people believe in the vaccine, some people don't. Affected millions of people all over the world. And I want to know if you were affected, or if any of the family member were affected. If you're a touring musician, you cannot tour, so people were stay at home. For some people, was a productive period, for others weren't. And how you holding up?
Yeah, it's a very strange time, that's for sure. I do know a few people that passed away from it. It hasn't really impacted me or my family at all. Ironically, I had planned to lock myself away during the year 2020, coincidentally, because in 2019, we had traveled all over the world filming all these different concerts with Alan Parsons and with Justin Hayward. And so I had a lot of work a backlog of work that I was going to have to do editing these concert movies together. And the only way I could do it was if I just sort of locked myself away in my production facility at my house. I have a state-of-the-art thing where I can do editing and recording and everything here. So I had planned to stay home anyway for about a year and get all these concert films done. And then the actual pandemic hit. So it didn't really affect me too much. In fact, I ended up getting a lot busier because a lot of bands were no longer able to tour. So they were requesting virtual internet type musical projects that we could record and broadcast over the internet during the time when they couldn't tour. So I actually got more work during this time. It's been quite an ordeal, I know, for a lot of people. Very serious illnesses, and it's difficult for people to deal with this.
Yeah, it's too bad, man. Very, very lucky to be alive to begin with, And
oh yeah,
for me, as I mentioned before, it was a way to look what was important to me. I'm a computer scientist. That's my day job, and I do this for fun. And I was going very fast in my life, doing a lot of stuff that wasn't happy, but I wasn't thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, I thought, well, I may die next week or whatever, So I better start doing the stuff that I really liked. And music has always been my passion. I have a huge music collection, about between CDs and vinyl, Blu-ray, over 7,000.
Wow.
I have 3 floors of music. One is there, that where I do in the video, but there. My wife always complained that I need to start. don't buy more music. Right. And I thought I put the range together, and then I began calling people, and it has been great for me, a great experience. I never thought I would be able to get a whole of people like yourself, or people from Genesis, people from Toto, and many electronic musician guys or girls. So I'm very, very fortunate, that I've been able to do it. On the other hand, I slowed down my life a lot, like they say here in the United States, to smell the roses, and seeing how beautiful it is to be alive, and and the opportunity to have a good family, have a good job, a good income. I have done well in my life, and so it's beautiful to. Not many people are able to do the thing that we love.
That they love. I know, that's true.
So it's terrible for some people. Where are you born? Let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you perhaps had an inclination to take piano lesson or guitar lesson? How music came into your life?
I don't really know. No, I did not come from a musical family at all. My dad was a naval captain. And for some weird reason, I just begged them to take piano lessons when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I pestered them, apparently. I don't know why. But I started classical piano training when I was 5. and which greatly influenced my taste in music. This was at the time when the Beatles were happening here in America, and I just sort of developed a taste for more complex, more symphonic type music based on my classical training. And so it was a very interesting time discovering music during that period.
And you became, when I read about your interview, about your biography, you became very, very proficient. So at the time, I think you were 15, 16, you could have gone professional, right? And
yeah.
then maybe all the stuff you did after that, like film production or film scoring and progressive stuff, perhaps could have happened. So it, in a way, was a turn in your life. I don't know, for the better or for the worse, depending on your point of view, but it allowed you to do a lot of more stuff, you know. So
well, it was a I was asked to become professional when I was 15, and I frankly I didn't really want to practice 4 hours a day, which I would have had to have done, and really, I wanted to play baseball and be with my friends and things, and it would have been a big commitment on my part. And the other thing was I was kind of confused about music. I was on the one hand, I could play Bach, Beethoven, Chopin very proficiently, but I enjoyed rock music, which I knew intellectually was a little bit not quite as artistic. Maybe I don't know if that's the right word, but these classical pieces I was playing were very complex compared to some of the songs that were on the radio, popular music, and so I kind of felt a little dissatisfied with a lot of the popular music. I always wanted to be a little bit more. I wanted to integrate classical and rock, which at the time hadn't really been done yet, or at least I wasn't aware of it yet. But then pretty soon people started doing it, and that's when I kind of got interested in music. But to answer your question, I was actually I was also making little movies at the time with my little Super 8 camera, and I found I love that just as much as music, maybe even a little bit more. And I decided to make filmmaking a career, which turned out to be the right choice for me, because I've had no problem at all making a living working in the film industry, whereas I've seen a lot of musicians kind of struggle to make a living in the music business.
At the time, so you were 17, 18 years old, you finished high school. Was any pressure for your family? Well, forget about the music, you're not going to make any money, forget about the film, go to medical school, become a lawyer, whatever. That's where the action is. And,
yeah, they were not. Well, I can't say they weren't supportive. They were supportive, but they were probably a little disappointed that I would have pursued either one of those things. Music and film wasn't quite the profession that I don't think that my parents wanted me to do. But I thought at the time, I really wrestled with it. I thought maybe I should get a normal job and just keep these as hobbies. But then I thought, you know what, we're only here once. Why not just do the very thing that you love, And I've been blessed and lucky beyond, my wildest dreams.
Yeah, in life, sometimes I think you need to do what your inner selves tell you to. I mean, for me, in my opinion, right?
Right.
One day I want to be 85 years old, hopefully, and look back in my life and say to myself, man, I did exactly what I wanted to do. I interviewed everybody in town, music comfort, and I have a beer with Eric Clapton when he was 80 in a bar in London or whatever, or seeing a concert or whatever. So it's important to do the stuff you like. I mean, it's foolish that people, become someone else's lives, someone else, someone else, methods or whatever they do, great. So.
Right, exactly. And I've been even more fortunate in that a lot of the people that I loved, admired growing up musically, are the very people I'm working with now. I mean, the chances of that, who would have thought that was possible?
Absolutely. What kind of music when you were 17, 18, what bands were you listening to? Rock
Well,
bands?
the first one I discovered was the Moody Blues.
Oh,
I didn't hear a lot of their. I came kind of late to them. They were a little bit before my time, but I caught them right at the end of their classic period. So Seventh Sojourn was the very first album I ever bought as a kid myself, with my own money. And because I'd heard this song on the radio called Land of Make Believe off of that album that sounded unlike anything I'd heard. I'd never heard anything sound like that before. It had flutes. It had this really distorted guitar. It had some really beautiful melodies and vocals and these really weird sounding strings, which I later learned came from a keyboard called a Mellotron. And I just hadn't heard anything like that before. And it sort of grabbed me. And that's what inspired me to really investigate progressive rock music and eventually go into recording my own music.
yeah. And that was before the internet, so you could look that up or use an app on your phone to say, who is this guy? So I'm quite sure you end up calling the radio and
yes, and who was that? I actually called the radio station.
You played that song a couple of minutes ago. Can you tell me the name? So you write it down and try to get the album. Go to a cassette of the vinyl. Go to a record store and.
That's what I did. I called up the radio station. And I said, "Who was that? What was that?" They gave me the name, and the next day I went out and bought the vinyl. Yeah.
So before we go to this, so what kind of film it was? Any particular director you were following at the time, or you were going with your friends or with your parents to the local theater to see, I don't know, Peter Weir or Bergman? What kind of what portion of films were you interested in, and why films?
I just kind of liked making the films when I was a kid. I started when I was 11 making films, so I was just kind of goofing around with it, and then eventually when I started to get serious about it, I started going to films, Steven Spielberg films and that sort of thing, and really began to study it and figure out how the whole film industry works in terms of making films and all the post-production and everything.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I like about films is that there's so many different aspects to it. There's writing, directing, producing, editing, lighting, scoring, acting. There's everything, and it's just a wonderful process.
For me, I'm a fan of soundtracks. I have, well, of course, I have a lot of movies, but there's so many soundtracks that I like the music, never seen the film, and vice versa.
Yeah,
I have seen many great films that the music is terrible, and something in between. So it's a beautiful way to explore movies. Yeah, I like science fiction, kind of horror movies in a way, because I'm a fan of, have a big collection of electronic music, so. Mm-hmm. When there's a scene where they play keyboards, Mellotron or weird stuff, and I'm fascinated with stuff. My first two records that I bought in my life, I think I was 16 or so at the time. It was a Pan Metheny one, a Jean-Luc Ponty, and a Tangerine Dream.
Yeah, yeah.
I grew up in a family where music was important. My dad had an obscene amount of music, all jazz stuff. And I didn't like the stuff. And I was 14. I discovered kind of rock and roll, and the rest is history.
Right.
Where it was bands like I don't know at the time, Genesis or Peter Gabriel or Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. Were you listening to any of the stuff? Before we got to the progressive.
Right.
Yeah. Were you listening to that kind of stuff?
Well, like I said, I started with the Moody Blues, and then that led to Genesis, yes, Jethro Tull, Kayak, Focus, Barclay James Harvest, Renaissance, Camel, and those were the bands. I was just attracted to those kind of bands that were doing innovative music, and then some of that went into the soundtrack as well. Tangerine Dream, and there was I think. William Friedkin used them on one of his films, and Goblin was another one that was doing some soundtrack work. So it just all kind of all came together and made it. There was this magical world of music that was out there, where it just seemed like people were really into experimenting and trying to just make rock music really innovative and really amazing.
Right. You could have stayed kind of in the film industry, producing, recording, fixing videos, doing stuff for people, and make a good living. But eventually, said, well, I've been listening to all these progressive rock bands. Maybe I should put an album together, right? So that was the beginning of Tales of Heroes and Lovers. So feel free to elaborate how the idea came, writing the track, finding a record label deal, and then put it out there.
Yeah, let's see, I got it right. Yeah, this one right here.
All right, yeah, that's a beautiful.
Yeah, that was what that album came out of frustration. I'll tell you what happened. I had gone to film school, so I was already working in the film industry, but I had this desire that I wanted to also try to put out music. I wanted to do both. And at the time, unfortunately, this was the early 1980s, and I was writing these progressive rock, epic pieces and trying to shop them around to different record companies, and nobody wanted them. They just, at the time, I think the Knack was the big band here in Los Angeles, and they weren't signing anything that was remotely progressive at all. And you had, in those days, this was pre-internet, you couldn't record your own stuff. You couldn't really put it out. You had to get a record deal, and nobody wanted it, and then there was disco and punk and new wave, and it just seemed like nobody wanted my stuff. So I went ahead and recorded this myself and just put it out myself. And of course it didn't really do anything, but it was a good learning experience. And I did do a music video for one of the songs, because I had access to all the film equipment where I was working. And the video got played all over the place. It was on MTV, and it just seemed like, I was going to be destined to sort of combine music and film, at some point in my life. Right. But yeah, so that, like I said, that album came out of frustration. I just couldn't. I had to just do it myself because nobody else wanted to.
Well, you were a musician for 16 years, right? Up till 16, where that was part of your life, right? So that doesn't go away, right? You were postponing the stuff a little bit, but eventually, inside your head, there's a clash and say, man, yeah, I like film score, I do okay financially, but I really like music too, so and MTV was, the right place at the time to put it together. And then I read that video got attention to different bands, and I think Three Dog Night ended up calling you and say, can you put something together for us, right?
Yeah. Three Dog Night, which of course was a legendary band. They'd just done some new recordings, and so I ended up as one of my first directing jobs was directing their a music video for one of their songs. But that resulted from them seeing the "It's Driving Me Crazy" video from that album.
Yeah, and then so music wise, now you were great, engaged with different, people that were playing music and different rock band. You had the opportunity to show your first album around and say, well, not only I can do videos and good quality videos, but also I'm a musician. Would you like to listen to my stuff? Or do you have the opportunity to show your stuff around as well before you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand, during this whole time, I'm working full time in the film business. So the music stuff was really yeah, on the side and free time, and any free time that I had. So I had this album finished. I was shopping it around, but as I told you, none of the record companies were really interested. Although I did find one that it was a CBS affiliate that did like it, but they wanted me to record a new album. And I thought, well, this might actually be a big break here. So I started recording a project with another singer, and we actually had gotten Patrick Moraz to agree to produce the album. You know, who was at the time he was with the Moody Blues. He had just been with Yes. I thought, well, this is fantastic, you know. But that whole thing kind of ended up falling apart as well. And but for me, I wasn't that frustrated about this because like I said, I was doing a lot of work in the film business and things were going really well. I was and the whole music thing had always been like a sideline thing. So,
and then so they didn't want you to for the first album. Then so what happened? Then that became the two album. It's not too late for you, or there was a lot of time in between you before you put the second album together, or
yes, after the CBS project with which was called Plan B fell apart. Wonderful singer that I was working with, Australian gentleman by the name of Chris Lloyds. He ended up going back to Australia. We broke up. It was just the two of us. It was a duo that they were going to try to promote us as. And so I joined up with another singer, and we recorded the It's Not Too Late album. Again, that was done independently. But what that one did was a kind of a return to my more progressive roots. The Plan B project had been very, very pop oriented. They wanted hit singles. They want, that was going to be a pop act. So I wasn't real happy with the direction of the music, but yeah, we did the It's Not Too Late thing, and it came out as the first CD that I had come out, and but again, nothing happened with that. So,
but then again, another turn in your life. If that album, the pop one would have been successful, your life would have taken another path again.
Right.
So
right.
if you, it's very easy to connect. It's very difficult to connect the dots going forward, but it's very easy to connect the dots going backward. Right?
Looking back, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
In a way, you look back. Maybe at the time you were frustrated, but the best thing that happened to you in a way that pop thing didn't work out, because then you knew that you wanted to stay in the progressive and as you were doing videos and progressive music, feel free to elaborate on how Camel came into your life. As that was
well, exactly right. And I think you've I think that what you're talking about is almost the secret of life. It's where you can look back on things, and everything that happens is meant to be.
Absolutely.
And so I've known that. So I've had an attitude of if something doesn't work out, there's a reason for that, and inevitably, what does work out from that was the thing that was the best possible option. So I don't get discouraged at all. I look at everything that happens is a purpose and leads to dreams that you may not have even they're even better than you thought they would be being fulfilled. So yeah, I'm excited about the way life works like that. At least for me, that's how it works. And
I don't know if God exists or not. Who I have to say that, but in a way, connecting the dot, and then a particular path goes off, and then you go into another path. You make a left turn instead of making a right. Perhaps that are the best issues. And the other thing that you need to be confident that things will going to work out. And I don't know if it happened to you, but in life, many people want to bring you down, right? Well, forget about the music, stay in the classical. Oh, now you want to do film, and now you want to start doing, Camel stuff, and you know, you people are crazy. I don't. In my case, I don't care what everybody else think or what everybody else does.
Right.
There is the voice inside myself. Go for this. Go for that. Go for that. And you need to try. You need to do it. Otherwise, nobody, will do it for you. You don't want to live like life. Well, why didn't do this stuff? It was important for me at the time, or whatever. So.
Right. No, I totally agree. And what you're talking about is really interesting because it was right after this point. In fact, it was the very next year that I got in touch with Andy Latimer from the band Camel, one of the best progressive bands from England. And I started producing and directing a lot of their concert films and documentaries and DVDs for them. And that just opened up all kinds of doorways, and it not only being an incredible amount of fun to do something like that, but to just to be able to work with somebody who I admired for so long. And that's been an amazing, and that was almost kind of the start of the fusion of, even though I'd done a few music videos for MTV and things, my relationship with Camel started the whole process of me working with some of these legendary bands that in terms of producing and directing their video output in concert films.
Were you traveling a lot with them? I mean, Camel was playing all over the world at the time, so it was.
We started off by doing things that were local. Like at the time I'm from Southern California, and then they were actually based in Northern California. So the first show that we filmed was a show that they did in Los Angeles. Yeah, that became the coming of age concert film, and then simultaneously we were doing the documentary Curriculum Vitae, which was the history of Camel, which I love doing documentaries. I've done close to 100 of them, and that one was just fantastic. And it was a very emotional film. I don't know if you know much of Camel's story, but
I do. I did have the opportunity to talk to Colin Bass a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, wonderful guy. Yeah, amazing.
Very nice person too. Man.
Oh yeah. All those guys are. It's so that was amazing going up to their house. I remember rummaging through all of their. They brought down boxes and boxes of these old photos that I had to sort through and scan them and to put into this documentary. And some of these had never been seen before, and it just it was an amazing experience just to be up there with them, working and then traveling and doing some of these shows with them. And then eventually, we did. I ended up doing, I think, a total of 9 DVDs for them, which included going to Japan and doing all kinds of things. It was what an amazing experience.
Yeah, and it's difficult for you at the time. I assume that you were married, you have little kids, to leave your family behind and travel to all over the world.
That one of my priorities was to stay with my family. So when I did go off, it was only for a few days. I never went away. I never went on long tours or anything like that. It would just be like go for a few days, shoot the concert, then come back. My family was more important than traveling.
That's right. Then plus you have nowadays, I don't know, at the time you had a good studio at home, but nowadays you can go shoot and then come back home and then do all the work at home, right? You really need to stay in Japan to edit and.
Oh, exactly. Right. So I mean, just that's a whole nother subject, and you're probably very familiar with this. It's just the whole transformation of technology since I started. I mean, the first movie I did was on film. We shot it on film. You actually cut the film, taped it back together, and then it got, then it went to video, and then it got computerized, and the big studios that we used to have are now, I can do broadcast quality work like on a laptop right here in front of me. It's amazing how technology has just evolved over the years.
Yeah. So I have seen some of the videos, and well, I'm familiar with Camels. I like so many bands, but Camel it's an unbelievable band. I mean,
Yeah.
Andrew Latimer is like a genius guy. I mean, he's some of those people that are way up there.
Yes.
And
And one of the other things about Andy is that we all know some of the progressive bands that we love from the past, and some of their newer material didn't really measure up to some of their older material. You probably know who I'm talking about. But Camel was somebody, I mean, his newer albums that he was putting out when I started working with him, with Dust and Dreams, Harbor Tears, Nod and a Wink. These albums were just as good as the earlier albums. And here was a guy who had been around for such a long time and was still able to put that much effort into songwriting and to production, just to keep that level of quality and magic going. I was very impressed with Andy, for sure.
And they're going to be touring, starting in Barcelona and going to Spain, I think in March or April next year. They do some, and I think Colin was telling me that there's a possibility that we'll start in Japan because they're so popular there, and then go back to Spain, and then we'll do some gigs. They will do some gigs in Europe, and then I will go. I travel a lot for gigs myself. I mean, music, as I told you before, is so important to me. So I see close to 40, 50 shows a year. So I go everywhere, man. So
wow.
And especially where I live, since I live at the border with Maryland and Washington, every band comes this way. So I'm very fortunate to be where I am. And do you ever work with Sky? Because people that like Camel like Sky as well. Or
no, I haven't.
They're very good, man. So feel free to elaborate. So what's happened with all these DVDs that you mentioned? They end up, so they were part of, once they were produced, they were selling them, they were to the website. What was your exposure after those DVDs were filmed?
Well, I would, we'd finish them and we'd master them, and then Camel Productions had their own company, and they would distribute them. You could get them off of their website. See, I started right before the internet happened with Camel, and originally they would sell stuff through a newsletter, and then as soon as the internet came along, they of course got rid of the newsletter and just were able to sell things directly over off of their website, and then you could get them from Amazon. You could buy them at the shows. It was a really good way for people to get a hold of these concerts that they may have missed.
Yeah, gotcha. And then after that, you went back to film with the Joyriders, that's correct?
Yes, and this is something most people don't know. I tried to get, I was hoping to get Andy to score the movie.
Really?
And it was they actually approved him to score the movie, and for some reason at the last minute it fell apart. And then and I had written a song, the theme song, so they kept the theme song and used that in the movie. But that was a movie with Kristofferson and Martin Landau, and Andy had really wanted to get into film scoring, so I was trying to make that happen, because I was the second unit director on that movie. But
and then the single became popular, I think, right? Associated with the movie. And
it came out, the song "So Far From Home" came out as a single with a female singer on it.
Yeah. And then you, after that you began working with Andy, and then in 2010, you put your third album together, right? Random Acts of Beauty was released, right?
Yeah, that was the turning point, was Random Acts of Beauty. It was, I had been speaking with Andy, and he had been very, very ill. very serious illness, and he was recovering from that. And I had talked to him, and he was very encouraging to me. He said, Dave, he knew I had a musical background. I hadn't been exploring it for 14, 15 years by that point. He just said, Dave, just do it. Just record an album. Just go ahead and do it. And this was at the time when, when computers, they had this, Pro Tools had come out. You could actually record in your own home and not have to spend, $300 or $400 an hour like you had to do in the old days. When I first started recording, you could actually do it yourself on your computer, which was, amazing. So I recorded one song, and it was a song called Masquerade, and I sent it to Andy just to see what he thought about it, and he offered to play on it. He offered,
wow,
which was like, okay, that's fantastic. And as soon as he said that, I knew I had to now finish the album and do something with this, because this was an amazing turn of events here. And I still remember the day he sent me he recorded a guitar solo for it. And when this was a new thing for me to do as well, which was sending files over the internet back and forth. I would send him the track, and then he sent me back his guitar solo, and I sunk it up with the track when I got it, and I was just blown away. I can't even tell you how magical that sounded. And then the next day he kept sending me more tracks. He sent whole more sections, and then he sent me a vocal, him singing, and I was just blown away by how involved he got in this. And you have to remember, he hadn't recorded anything for 8 years. Because he had been recovering from this illness, and for him to put this effort into this thing, for me, was just, I was so appreciative of it, and that changed everything right there. My son and I recorded the rest of the album, he and I together. My son at the time was 20 years old.
Yep.
And he was a great guitar player, really good guitar player. So I did the keyboards and the bass, and he did the guitars. And it was a very small production, and so we recorded the rest of the album, and so then we had this album finished, which was very easy to record, and it came out I think in October of 2010, and it just took off. I mean, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know if people would like it. I didn't know if people were even interested in progressive rock at this point. I didn't, because I hadn't been following. It'd been so long since I'd actually done anything. I hadn't really been following the musical trends, but apparently progressive rock had made a resurgence, with bands, like, whatever bands were coming out at that time.
What was your idea, to tour with the band, or you were happy with just releasing it to the public and see how sales will go and make a little bit of money for sales? Or
I was open to touring it, but what happened, what always seems to happen, is I got really busy in the film business, and I had to make a choice. And some of the stuff I was doing in the film business was very exciting. Yeah. And it just never seemed to be there was never a time. So I still haven't toured yet. Ever since I've sort of gotten back into the music business. A lot of people would like me to, but I'm busier now than ever. So I don't know how that's going to come about. I don't know.
Maybe one day. Well, it's a good problem to have, though. If you're making money and you have work and you're busy, that's good for you. And then some year later, you begin collaborating with Hayward again, and that in a way reach like a new level. And then feel free to elaborate on how the motion picture called The Wind of Heaven came about and so forth.
Yeah. So what happened after Random Acts of Beauty came out, I was thinking, well, this is great. I can now, if I don't have time to tour, at least I can start recording albums on a regular basis now. But then I started working with Justin Hayward, who was the guy who originally inspired me to go into the music business in the first place, back when I was a 13-year-old.